Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me for this session about AI for leaders for 2026 and beyond. And I've had more people register for this particular presentation than for many others. So obviously, AI is still a really big topic of conversation. Thank you, everyone who's here live. I will make this engaging and interactive for you. If you're watching the recording, hello to you. You won't get as much value from being here live, but you'll still get value from the recording as well. So we've got an hour together, and my goal here is to share with you where AI is now and where it's heading for the next 12 months and even beyond that. So my three rules of engagement that I do for all my sessions are these. And if you've been here before, you know these rules of engagement. The first one is I want to give you some things to think about. So do whatever you can to remove interruptions and distractions for this hour, and really think about where you're going with AI as a leader for the next 12 months and more. And as you think, can I invite you to be playful as well? So we will have some opportunities for engagement here. I will stop as we go through for you to ask me questions. I've got some questions for you as well. And I really would like you, by the end of this session, to have some real practical actions that you can take and put into place in your leadership practice, in your business, or in your organization. So just to get started, I often do this at the start of my presentations. I wonder where everyone's from. Looking at the registrations, most people are from around Australia or New Zealand. But if you can just type in the chat where you're from, and we'll see who's in the room, like where people are from in the room. Okay, good. So lots of people around Australia. That's good. That's good to see, not surprisingly. Excellent. Thank you so much for doing that. The examples I'm going to share, some of them are Australia-centric because that's where I'm from as well. But I think you'll see that even the ones that are not are relevant for us in Australia and vice versa. So AI, it's about 3 years now, almost 3 years since the launch of ChatGPT. But AI has been around a lot longer than that. For me, I've been using AI since way back when I was doing my computer science degree more than 30 years ago at the University of Western Australia, and I did my thesis about AI. So I like to say I've been following and tracking it since the 1900s. But for most people, AI is pretty new, and especially for most leaders who are now facing this AI onslaught, they're not quite sure what to do about it and how to use it and how to make the most of it. So can I ask, we'll do this as a little 1 to 10 scale. I'm going to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, being subjective here, how much do you use AI? And just to give you some idea of how to rate yourself, if you use it every day and you say it's an integral part of what I do, use it all the time, you'd rate yourself 8, 9, or 10. If you don't use it at all, or you're very new to it, 1, 2, or 3. So just in the chat, just type in a number from 1 to 10, telling me where you're at with your use of it. Okay, so most people are around about the 4 or 5, 4.5, coming up to 5. Great. Okay, thank you. So it's interesting because I framed the question that way to say if you're using it every day, rate yourself very highly. I was doing some AI consulting for a senior exec team of a very large international company just yesterday, and I asked them the same question. And one of the leaders said, I use it every day, but I might only be using 1% of its potential. Should I scale myself 10, or should I scale myself 1 or 2? Because I don't know how much more there is to use. It's a very smart question. It's a very relevant one, and that's why I framed it to say, are you using it already every day? And in that case, rate yourself highly. But the other important point from that is, yes, like all of us are only using a fraction of what AI's potential is, but you don't have to be using 10%, 20%, even 2% of AI, even 1% of AI to get value from it. So even though AI is moving fast, and it's moving very fast, don't feel that you need to keep up with everything. Just find things that you can do to create value with AI right now, and that's good enough. And that will be way ahead of where you were a year ago, and probably way ahead of where your competition is as well. So don't feel that you have to be up at a 10 now, but look at how you can increase that use. If you rated yourself low, look at how you can increase that use over the coming year. Okay, so I want to talk about AI coming up from now, 2025 to 2026, and I reckon we should start with this guiding principle. Whenever you think about AI, especially from a leadership perspective, make sure you're thinking about people first, technology second. So AI is a technology, but it's just a tool. It's there to serve us, not the other way around. In fact, I've heard people talk about AI to think about it rather than AI, think of it as IA, an intelligent assistant. And if you think about it in that way, and you've got that mindset and your team has that mindset, it's a very useful frame for you as a leader adopting and integrating AI. Okay, so that's a big picture frame as we're talking about moving from 2025 to 2026. So I want to break this down into 3 categories. And I've got like 2 little topics within each category. The 3 categories are: number 1, customers. So how are you using AI to enhance your customer experience? And look, if you do nothing else, look at AI for improving your customer experience. And as a futurist, I'm often asked, what do you need to do to stay future ready or future proof or like relevant? And I say the most important thing you can do, the single most important thing you can do, is solve your customers' problems. Okay, whether you call them customers, clients, patients, shareholders, other external stakeholders. Solve their problems or help them achieve their goals. If you start from that point and then reverse engineer everything else to be able to achieve that, then you'll continue to stay relevant. The second area is AI internally. So this is a bit of a techie thing, and this might be something that you pass on to your CIO or CTO or head of IT, and it may be her responsibility rather than yours, unless you're on the call now in this meeting, but it's more the technical side of it. For most leaders in most organizations, this stuff here should not be your responsibility, but it's useful to understand the big picture around that, which is why I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that. And the third area, which I actually think is the most important, apart from solving customer problems, is AI within your team. In terms of adopting AI, you need to bring your people along on the journey. Okay, so those are 3 areas that we're going to go through. At the end of each of those 3, I'll stop and you can ask me questions. Please feel free to type questions in the chat at any time. And when we stop, then I'll read through the questions that have come through. Okay, so let's look at this first area. AI for customer experience. So broadly, up until now, customer experience, using AI for that, has been about cutting costs so that you can be more efficient in serving customers. Now we're moving beyond that. We should still not stop doing that, but we're moving beyond that to build loyalty and create trust and long-term relationships. And people are using AI more for that now. And sometimes if you focus only on the cost cutting, things go wrong, things go badly wrong. There are plenty of examples of that. Here's one that's pretty recent from just a couple of months ago, where Taco Bell in the US, they started using AI in their drive-thrus, replacing humans who are taking the orders at the drive-thru with voice bots, with chat bots. And what they found was it was terrible. It was terrible. Not only from a people point of view, that like replacing people with robots, essentially, but also just in terms of the quality. Sometimes the AI wouldn't understand the order properly, and also customers found it was very easy to prank the AI chatbots. And there's one story that made the news about one customer ordered 18,000 waters, and the AI goes, "Yeah, I understand that, so I'll just put it through as an order." Okay, it didn't have the intelligence to be able to make a decision around that. And Taco Bell should have known better, because three years earlier, McDonald's did the same thing, had similar results. So there are plenty of examples of people trying to cut costs with AI, and it doesn't work as well. Now, in 3 years' time, the story might be different. But at the moment, with the quality of AI right now, it isn't good enough. It isn't good enough. So don't only look at cutting costs. I'll give you an example later of a business that used AI to enhance customer experience, but without sacrificing the quality. Okay, I'll show you that later. But here's one other example. Coles and Woolies are two of the best examples of organizations in Australia who are using AI for everything. Everything. So if you've got a Flybuys card or a Woolies rewards card, you know that AI is determining what offers to send out to you in its weekly emails and all the special offers and stuff. You know that, right? Here's another example. In the Coles deli, they've got hidden cameras that are monitoring the deli, not to try and identify customers or do any privacy violations, but the goal of that is to look at how many people are waiting to be served. Because Coles has done some research and they found that if people wait longer than a few minutes, and they figured out exactly how long, on average, people are willing to wait before they walk away if they don't get served. So these cameras are monitoring the amount of customers waiting at the deli, and the AI behind that can then either alert staff or in the longer term manage shifts and rosters based on the traffic at the deli at various times of the day. So Coles is using AI in this case to enhance its customer experience, to be able to serve its customers better. So that's the difference between just trying to cut costs and using it to build long-term loyalty, build a better experience, which then generates long-term loyalty. Along with this whole idea of where you're looking at costs and loyalty is this whole idea of ethics and privacy and security and confidentiality of customer data. I don't need to tell you about all the stories of how companies have breached have had their systems breached or have used AI inappropriately. I'll share a couple of them with you, but I'm sure you've heard many of them. And it used to be that you could get away with just going, oops, sorry, our mistake, we'll do something about it, we'll have a review. That's the typical answer. And now we're going towards, no, that's not good enough anymore. You need to build trust before we do business with you, or before we do business with you again. And I think you know these sort of stories. Here's one that in the early days of AI, there was a lawyer who used ChatGPT to write a brief, to help him write a brief, which he submitted to court, which is his customer. And it was found that it had made up stories, so made up references and case studies, which is cited in the brief, but weren't real. And he got away with it, pretty much a slap on the wrist, a $5,000 fine. It could have been worse. He could have been banned for lying to the court, but the judge said, this is new technology, I understand, you didn't get it, so don't do it again. Just give us $5,000. So it was pretty light sentence. Light punishment for that lawyer. There are plenty of examples, and that sort of stuff is still happening. I'll show you another example soon that happened here in Australia just a few weeks ago. Apple, when they brought out their own credit card, it was found to have bias in the way that it evaluated customers for their credit limit. In fact, there's two customers, a husband and wife team. They both applied for Apple credit cards at the same time. They had very similar credit ratings, and the sort of criteria were the same. The only difference was that one was a woman. And Apple gave the man 5 times as much high credit limit as it did to the woman. And we only found out about this because this was this natural experiment, this couple who had very similar criteria, and Apple had just rated them very differently. And Apple, of course, said, no, we don't have any bias, we don't have any gender bias in how we rate customers, but the data it was trained on did have that bias. So the AI came out and exhibited the same bias, and we wouldn't have known about it if not for this case. So there is bias built into the AI algorithms, and again Apple said, oops, sorry, let's raise her credit limit. But now people are saying that's not good enough, you need to get that right up front. Here's another example. I was outraged a few years ago when these academics who were writing a submission to the Senate inquiry about allegations of wrongdoing by PwC initially, and then KPMG, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, and so on. And these academics wrote a submission, sent in a submission to this inquiry with AI-generated fake references in there. They weren't using ChatGPT, they were using Google Bard, now Google Gemini, but they submitted this to a formal Senate inquiry into wrongdoing. And it's not because they were malicious, they were ignorant. And I share this story because these are the people, their day job is to write reports, to cite sources, to have everything carefully referenced, cross-referenced, and proven to be accurate. But they just didn't know. They got away with less than a slap on the wrist. They were just told to resubmit it without those fake references in there, and they did. So I was outraged when this story came out. I was equally outraged a few weeks ago when the shoe was on the other foot. Deloitte wrote a $500,000 report. They got a contract, sent it to the Australian government, and again it was found to have fake references in it. Some of the references didn't even exist. And like, what does that mean? What does that mean? If there are fake references in a report, it means that Deloitte didn't even bother checking those references, right? It just chucked those references in to make the report look more authoritative and credible. It's not like they read the references and then interpreted it wrongly, or the references had incorrect material. They were just padding out the report to justify their fee. So they've apologized and promised to pay back some of the fee, and we as taxpayers should know how much they're paying back. We're not being told by the government, but this was a case again of, we shouldn't trust AI, and we should hold, our customers should hold us to higher standards when we're using AI in any of our experience with them. Okay, let me get off my soapbox here and let me ask you a question. And again, let me ask you this on a scale of 1 to 10. How much do your customers trust you with AI? So again, let me tell you how to rate yourself. So if you say we use AI a lot in our customer experience, and our customers know that we use AI and they trust that we're using it in an ethical, safe, responsible, secure way, then you rate yourself 8, 9, or 10. If you're using AI but you're not disclosing it, or you're not using AI at all, then you might rate yourself low, 1, 2, or 3. So how do you rate yourself? Give me a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, and remember, this is about your customer's perception of AI, not about you using AI itself. It's like a combination, but it's about, do your customers trust you with AI? Because see, the thing is, and I'm not surprised, like when I ask this question, the scores are generally pretty low. Okay, and we can see here that a couple of people are scoring high, which is good. Really pleased to see that. But most people are 1, 2, or 3. And the reason I'm sharing this now is to encourage you, I invite you, if you're using AI, to be transparent with your customers. There's no legal need to do it just yet. There is in some industries and sectors. There's no legal need to do it. But if you do it now, sooner rather than later, and you build that trust now, when you start using more advanced AI, it's easier to bring your customers along on that journey, rather than in 12 months' time, when you implement some agentic AI, which I'll talk about soon. When you do that, your customers are taken completely by surprise. Okay, so build that as part of your brand, part of your reputation as an organization. Okay, so 2 to 3. I've asked this question a few times recently, and this is typical. So it's low, but my invitation to you is be transparent about how you're using it. So for me, for example, when I do keynote presentations at conferences, I'm doing one tomorrow for the Bus Industry Confederation, talking about the future of transport. I'm pretty open about the fact that I did research about the bus industry and transport in Australia using AI. I'll show them the report I generated, show them some audio that I generated from that. So people know I'm using AI, but I probably don't even need to say that. But if your customers don't know that you are, make sure that you do share it with them and you're transparent with them about it. Because even if it's not required in your sector just yet, it might be in the future, and it's just a good thing to do to enhance your customer experience, not just now, but for the future. Okay, so I'm going to stop for questions soon, but while we're talking about customer experience, I won't say much more about that because I've written a whole report about this, which I wrote about a few months ago. So it's pretty new, it's pretty current, it's free. It's on my website. You can go there, AI-powered customer experience, and you can download the report. It's got lots of stories like the Apple story, like I don't think I did the Taco Bell story, but the McDonald's story. But also, it's not just scary stories about AI. It's about what you can do to make sure that you use AI to enhance your customer experience, not diminish it. Okay, I'm going to stop for questions. Okay, so any questions about anything that we've done so far, just type them in the chat and I'll be happy to take questions now. If you haven't got any just yet, that's okay, because we'll take some, if you've got questions about customer experience and they only pop up later for you, then type them in the chat anyway and I'll come back to them. I did see one, I think there was a Taco Bell one. I wonder what the bill was, the Taco Bell one. Yeah. So look, and it is true that AI has been used. If it's used inappropriately, it's done some crazy things and has had some big costs. And I'll talk about there's something new coming up in AI that will increase the risk of that. It has huge benefits, but also increase the risk of that, of AI making dumb mistakes, either because it's pranked or because it just unintentionally makes dumb mistakes. Okay, other questions? Let me just check what's coming through. Yeah, so comment from Kunal here. Yeah, so for people who are using the Microsoft suite of products, and this is more about the tech side of it, if you're using Copilot, especially Copilot Enterprise, if your IT team has set it up appropriately, then it's a much more secure environment. So that's absolutely true, Kunal, and that's true. And it can be with ChatGPT as well. Like if you're using ChatGPT Enterprise, the same thing's true. It's just that most people out there in the world aren't using the Enterprise version, and the people, this is a broad generalization, but the organizations who can afford the Enterprise version of ChatGPT are probably using Microsoft anyway, so they're going to go for Copilot, which is a better integrator with that. So Nathan, this is a question about customer experience and AI. Yeah, so this is an important question. This is an important leadership question. So if you're telling your customers about how you're using it, how do you protect your value proposition? So the way that you use AI in your workflows. And my recommendation is that you don't describe your workflows, but you describe the fact that you're collecting data, that AI may be used, AI may be touching, like for banks, you know that AI, like we all know, right? I hope we know that every time you apply for a loan, your loan is being touched by AI, it's being assessed by AI. And so you should make that transparent. You don't need to say in which sections of the workflow that's required, or you're using it, unless it's required by law. Some sectors are much stricter, and they say AI is being used in this area. You need to disclose that. You need to disclose how much human oversight is in this. But if that's not the case, be as transparent as you can without divulging intellectual property. Thanks. Peter, an approach for getting around governance and IT teams' resistance to staff use of AI tools. Yeah, look, I will talk about this in the next section when we talk about operations. But in a nutshell, the way to do it is to create some compelling reasons for using AI for a particular application. So IT people, and I used to be one of them, IT people love new ideas and using technology in new ways. But equally, they've got a responsibility to make sure that things are kept secure, particularly secure, but other things as well, like safe and confidential. So if you can give them a compelling reason to do something, then they will come on board. So I'll talk about this briefly, but I reckon every leader should be running some small scale AI projects in her team or his team, and then do them as prototypes, do them as pilot projects, use dummy data, use completely external AI, use AI tools that are disconnected from the corporate database, and then do a prototype, prove that it works, and then bring IT on, bring IT on board, take it to IT and say, look, we've got this, it works. How can we make it work within the corporate structure? So rather than trying to do it within the corporate structure, which might breach security, do it first externally in a safe way, and then bring it on board. So that's it in a nutshell, Peter. Okay, let's move on to this second area here, and we'll have another couple of opportunities for questions later. The second one is actually talking about Peter's question, actually leads into this quite well. It's AI in terms of your, this is kind of some of the internals of AI. As I said, this might be something that if you're not the CIO, CTO, head of IT in your organization, maybe this is something you need to pass on to her or to him. The first one of these two topics around this is about data. Data, if you've got an American keyboard. So the thing with data is like AI gorges itself on data. It needs data to work. It uses heaps and heaps of data. And until now, the priority has been collecting data. which is good. And we still need to, we shouldn't stop doing that. But now we're looking at how we can connect it and use it to help AI help us make better, more well-informed decisions. Okay, so don't stop collecting data, but look at how you're cleaning up the data, how you're connecting it to AI tools. There's no point having this data sitting in silos that AI can't use. Earlier this year, I did some work with Gartner, speaking to Gartner clients about AI, and this is one of the analysts at Gartner, and he said this, like in the past, the only people who could do meaningful analytics with data are people who had large organizations, lots of resources, deep pockets, the ability to build things themselves. Is not true anymore. So even if you're part of a smaller organization or even a small business owner, you could run, use data and analytics. You could run AI on your data for you can buy these $20 a month, $50 a month subscriptions to really powerful AI tools that can work on that data. I will give you an example of a conference I spoke at last year for a large organization. I was speaking to their leadership team. They were having a leadership forum, and I was the opening speaker. But it turned out that I wasn't the first person on stage. The first person on stage, the CEO, came on, not just to introduce me, but he said, I want to introduce you to a group of students from Curtin University, one of our unis here in WA. And we, over the last 6 months, have been sponsoring them doing these data hackathons where we ask them to solve projects. They can pick some projects and solve it. This team won that competition. So in addition to the prizes they got there, we've invited them here today to solve a real problem in our organization. And so before he introduced me, he brought these students up and he said, look, we'd like you to help us with predictive maintenance on their equipment. So they have a whole bunch of equipment in different locations, and they wanted to find some way of predicting when that equipment would break down or need maintenance, so they could fix it before it broke down, because obviously prevention is much cheaper than actually fixing it when it's broken. So they said, we're going to give you all access to all our data, and we're going to give you the rest of the day, go away and solve the problem. And then he said, oh, now welcome Gihan Pereira, keynote speaker, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, these students came back and they had created in a day an AI-powered dashboard showing all the equipment in the organization and the current status, and if there were any faults, or predicting that there might be faults. So they solved the problem in a day. And at the end of the day, the boss said to me, he said, you know what? It would have taken us 3 months to even get approval for us doing that project in-house. And these kids, these young adults, they solved it in a day. Okay, so these sort of things are possible when you give people access to data. So if you are the CTO or CIO or the head of IT, you may not be the best person to be running these projects. There may be some other people in your team that don't have to be young people, but quite often they are. There might be these people who are absolutely able to solve problems much faster than you could do if you let them go off and solve it and then come and bring it back, to Peter's point, and bring it back into the core operations of the organization. Okay, so look at doing that. Look at ways that you can make that happen. Also going back to my story that I told you earlier about when I was studying at uni and I did a computer science thesis. So my thesis, and I don't get many opportunities to talk about what I did at uni, so I'm taking the opportunity to do that now. My thesis, as I said, was about AI, and it was about AI trying to teach robots how to pick up objects. Okay, that was it. So how to use AI to train a robot to pick up stuff. So you can imagine that picking up something like a coffee cup requires a certain grasp to hold it steadily, especially if it's full. This one's not, but it requires a certain level of skills to know how much pressure to apply, how to move your fingers. And it's a bit different from here's my award from the Professional Speakers Singapore, but picking up something like this is a little bit different. It's more slippery around the edges. You're not going to grasp it the same way. So my thesis was training this AI, training the robot with AI to be able to figure out how to pick up things. And it was quite complex. We take it for granted now because we've had years and years and experience of picking up things, dropping them, and learning from that. But it's quite complex, and I was doing differential calculus and physics and a whole bunch of stuff to be able to do that. And it's a difficult problem, so much so that hasn't really been fully solved yet. But a few years ago, a couple of years ago, some people at Harvard, some researchers, came up with the solution to this problem. And this is what they did. They said, let's forget about the differential calculus. Let's just give it more fingers. And so they created this thing which is like an octopus, which with its tentacles could just wrap around something, and kind of didn't matter whether the physics was right or the maths was right, because it had so many fingers that it would be able to pick up pretty much anything. Okay, and I thought it's a really clever solution to what I was struggling with 35 years ago. And the reason I'm sharing this is because AI is like that now. The software behind AI doesn't have to be particularly complex. So, I mean, it is like way beyond my pay grade and for most people in the room, but it doesn't have to be. What it does need is lots and lots of good quality, high quality data. Because the more data you give it, the dumb AI will be able to learn from that and then become smart AI. It's actually how we learn. How we learn as toddlers. We learn about things by just trying, experimenting over and over and over again, and we're pretty dumb. But by doing it over and over again, we become smarter. So this is why data is so important in AI. Okay, so the next area around that is around productivity. So it's not just collecting the data and connecting it, but how do you use it? And I think this is where we used to say productivity is really about saving time, and people are using AI a lot for saving time, like helping to draft better emails or draft better replies to emails or summarize meeting minutes, things like that. Now we're moving more towards how do we create value? And again, coming back to Peter's point earlier about how you create value, I reckon what you should do are these small scale projects. So if you're a leader in an organization, then do some small scale projects. You don't have to lead it. You may have a small team of people, especially if you've got somebody who's keen and excited and annoying sometimes already about wanting to do something. Put her in charge of a team and ask her to bring a team together to solve it. And you're looking at one of four things. Either it's about, could be any of these four. It could be about money, making money or saving money. It could be about time, obviously, about saving time. It could be about well-being. So does it increase and enhance people's well-being? And it could be about engagement, either external engagement like customer engagement or internal engagement within the team. And then get them to do a off the main corporate database project using dummy data, and then test it out, see if it works. Let me share an example. This is one that one of my clients did when I was working with them around this. So this is an organization that does a number of community services. One of them, they've got one of the arms of the organization does childcare. And so this group, the childcare group, because what we did was we brought all the leaders together in a room one day, and they were all sitting at their own tables based on their department. And the childcare group said we spend about, every time we get a new child into our system, we spend about 3 hours writing a development plan for them. Can we use AI to reduce that time and still get the same quality? And I love this group more than any of the others. I love them all, but I love this group in particular because when they did it, they had never used AI before, not really, except for little minor ChatGPT. But they went away and they asked AI, how can we use AI to solve this problem? Came up with some suggestions. It said use this software called Notion, which is not part of their corporate suite. They were using Copilot. They'd never heard of Notion, so they asked ChatGPT, how do we use Notion? And so they got a tutorial on how to do that. And then they built this thing that when they came back 3 weeks later and all the teams were presenting their ideas, they built this that reduced the time from 3 hours to 15 minutes. And most of the time was a few minutes entering all the data about this new child, about their age, their preferences, their likes, dislikes, whatever, put that into the system. AI generated the report, and then it took about 10 minutes for an actual qualified staff member to review that and say, is it right, is it appropriate? And they did kind of testing as well to make sure that the AI was, well, not to make sure it was right, but to see what the AI would say. So they said one of the tests was, they said, oh, this child likes running with scissors. And sure enough, the development plan came back and said, oh, make sure there are lots of scissors around. Okay, so they stress tested their software, but they understood the limitations. So I love the fact that they used AI to find an AI solution, but I also The second thing, which I didn't expect, was when this childcare group shared their idea with the rest of the team, somebody in the aged care group, because they also provide aged care services, said, hey, can we come and speak to you afterwards? Because every time we have a new resident moving into aged care, we need to write a management plan for them. And I reckon we can use your software or adapt it slightly. And then the HR group said, can we talk to you as well? Because every time we have a new employee, we want to help them write a career plan and a career progression plan for their development. And, can we use your software as well? So the thing about doing these projects was that not only did they do something that they could then demonstrate to senior management, and then the next step is to bring IT on board and incorporate it and do it using Copilot, using real child data and so on in a safe, secure environment. So that's number one. And that was the initial goal. But also by sharing it, they had a success story that other teams said, we'd love that as well. And it wasn't just some idea. It wasn't just some half-baked idea. It wasn't something that other teams had to put a lot of resources in. They'd already proved it. And these other teams said, can we piggyback on that to get more ideas? Okay, so this is a really good use of AI for internally for product. I'm calling it productivity, but actually in this case it was a 3-hour task became 15 minutes, which then meant that the people could spend time doing more high-level tasks. Any questions about that, comments about that? Because this thing about doing projects is a key to AI adoption. I've been rabbiting on about it for the last 2 years now, and some people get it and they do it. Other people go, no, we need to get our AI policies and guardrails and strategy in place first before we can let our people loose on it. Other people go to the other extreme and go, no, we'll just let everyone do anything they want, and then it causes leadership problems, governance problems, right? But projects, I think, is a really, really valuable middle ground where you get people doing projects that create value and they learn to use AI and they become comfortable with it. So these people who in this group who are doing this, they weren't against AI, they just hadn't used it very much. But then they taught themselves to do it in a way that creates value. Okay, I'm going to stop for questions around that. If you've got questions, please ask. Any questions about getting started with projects? Apart from engaging me to help you do that, because I love to do that. And I love doing it because you see the results and people are so excited that they can use AI in a small way, but it creates big results. Okay, let me continue because this is, I think, the third area, which I think is the most important one, and the projects one leads on to that, is bringing people along on the AI journey. So if you think about your team's culture and the way you think about AI, there's a lot of conversation about AI first, and there's a lot of conversation now about that, and I'd rather that you were, rather than thinking AI first, think AI positive. Okay, so let me answer a question from Joshua here first. With projects. The question I'm going to ask you to answer, by the way, is before I tell you what AI first and AI positive mean, I'd like you to think about what you think that means, the difference between AI first and AI positive. We'll get back to that. So Joshua's question is, do you recommend starting with a small projects group or trying to get everyone involved? Yeah, I reckon open it up to as many people as you can, and it doesn't matter if everyone gets involved at the same level. Absolutely, it's totally okay to go, this group did something, the other group didn't, or they started it and they got stuck with their prototype. Doesn't matter. And some groups may go, oh, but what's this got to do with us? We're already too busy. That doesn't matter. Okay, again, try not to make it top down. This is very much about bottom up. There's a really good book about change called Switch by Chip and Dan. Let me just hide that first. Really good book about change called Switch by Chip and Dan Heath, and they talk about 9 principles of making change happen. And the number one in the book, they're not in order, but the number one in the book is find the bright spots. Find examples of where change has already worked in your organization or elsewhere, and use that as a motivation to get other people excited about change. And I think the find the bright spots is a really good thing with AI. If you can prove, and if you've actually got projects that are successful, even the skeptics will come on board, because skeptics are the ones who are looking for evidence. When they see the evidence, they'll come on board. The cynics might say, no, we don't really care, but that's okay. You don't need everybody to be on board, because each project is creating value in its own right. Okay, let me ask you that question that I asked you, that I said I was going to ask you. So, what do you think is the difference between AI first and AI positive? These are kind of terms that have been made up by people, so there's no right or wrong answer. So I'm going to give you my interpretation of it, but what do you think is the difference between an organization that's AI first and one that's AI positive? Any guesses? Let me see. Okay, let me tell you the difference. So there are a lot of people talking now about building AI first businesses. And that says, I'm going to build and it's generally with people starting businesses, they say, I'm going to build a business and assume that everything can be done by AI. So it's AI first. And if it can't, then we'll have people doing the work that AI can't do. I think for most established businesses, that's the wrong way around. So we should be looking at it the other way around. So AI positive says, we've got people doing work in our business. Part of our job is to make sure that people are doing work. And, part of our job is to give people motivating, fulfilling work, ideally. And if we can use AI to help them do that, then let's do that. So they're very positive towards AI. But again, it's about people first, technology second. Okay, so think about the way that your approach to your business and in your leadership role. How are you? Are you AI positive, which I think is good, and I think we can continue to be good in that area, or are you going AI first? Especially if you've got an established business, it's very, very, very difficult to say we're going to go AI first, because you've got all these established processes, workflows, protocols, and people. Last but definitely not least, who are already in the business, to go, let's get rid of them and replace them with AI, unless we absolutely can't, then it's a problem, right? So it's difficult to do. It's very difficult to do. If you're starting a business from scratch, you can be AI first. But I'm not talking to people like that here, I don't think. Okay, so, and Peter's comment is, AI first is about... and I think I still agree, Peter, with actually using AI tools for your core business. That's a really good thing to do. It's a really good thing to do. And it doesn't only have to be these AI first businesses that are doing that. I absolutely agree that that's a good thing to do. Whether you call it AI first, I still think that's AI positive as well. Because you're still saying, get the AI to do the heavy lifting, and then the people can do the higher level work. Let me show you with you something else that people say about AI. You might have seen somebody say something like this. This is probably the most common soundbite quote from AI experts, who say AI won't take your job, but a human using AI will. Okay, I don't like that. I've never said that, because I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true. The second part of that is true, that a person using AI is much better equipped to take your job than a person not using AI. So absolutely, be better educated about AI and make sure your team's educated about AI. But it's the first part, the bit that says AI won't take your job, that's just not true. It's just not true. And we know this already, because there are plenty of examples of AI taking jobs. The Combank just recently sacked about 50 staff, call center staff, replaced them with AI chatbots, and this made big news. You probably came across it because it made major nationwide news. And then they found, this is, by the way, the Fin Review wrote an article about one of the one of the call center workers who actually realized that she was training an AI chatbot to pretty much, knew she was going to lose her job. And Combank found that the chatbots were so bad that they had to rehire all the staff, because the chatbots just weren't at that same level of quality. This is what I said earlier. If you're using AI for customer experience to cut costs, it's a very, very risky thing to do. In an established business, established organization. Even Atlassian, which has a very, very good reputation in how they look after their employees and workplace and benefits that employees get, they're very pro-hybrid work and so on, even they sacked people due to AI. So if you hear somebody say AI won't take your job, but somebody using AI will, well, first of all, you go, well, that's not true. And if you repeat that to your team, they will say to you, well, that's not true, okay, because they know it. They know it. It's not like when I was a kid and teachers go, oh, you've got to learn times tables because you won't always have a calculator at hand. And my teachers have said that were wrong, but they didn't know that they were wrong. Now, if you say AI won't take your job, that's, people already know that's not true. So this is a serious issue, right? For us as leaders, it's really important to understand that some people in your team are worried that AI is going to take their jobs. So you need to make it clear that they're not. I hope you're going to make it clear that they're not, that AI is not, because I hope that's the attitude that you've taken. I said earlier that I'm going to share a story about somebody who's doing AI well. So here's that story. This is the RAC in WA, equivalent of RACV in Victoria, RACQ in Queensland, NRMA, and so on. They're a member-based organisation focused on WA. And I went to a presentation recently about how they're using AI. And I've been really interested in this. I've done some work for the RAC before, and I know they're very, very heavily focused on data analytics. Even before this AI thing became really big, they did a lot of work to use data to make better decisions. So I went to this presentation where the keynote speaker, the guest presenter, was Bobby Patel, who's the head of AI at the RAC. And he talked about, so this is with the Digital Transformation Group, and he was speaking to techies in the room. And he talked about the many, many ways that RAC is using AI in their operations, pretty much in everything. And then at Q&A time, somebody's put up their hand and said, is there any area that you're not using AI or that you won't use AI? And Bobby said this, we won't use AI for this, and I'll tell you what this is, because it goes against our mission. And what he was talking about was replacing call center staff with these AI chatbots. The sort of disaster stories I've told you earlier. But the reason he said we're not using it is not because it's the quality, because it goes against our mission. So he says the mission of RAC is to serve the Western Australian community. And sacking Western Australians, because they've got a local call centre, sacking Western Australians and replacing them with robots is not serving the WA community. So he said we won't replace call centre staff with AI. But we do use AI in our call centres, and it's used by the staff. So I'm an RAC member. If I ring up and have a question about my insurance, then the staff member I'm speaking to could be in the background using AI to search for my details about my policy, to search RAC policies, to get AI so that she can give me a better answer. Okay, that's the right way to use AI in the workplace. And I think that's what we should be doing. We should be thinking about using AI to augment what we do. And again, to Peter's point, like it can help us do some of the core things. And then we use our human intelligence to do the human things. Okay? And we should continue to do that. And even like AI is going to get to a point where it can be good enough to do things. It's going to be able to do more and more of the things that we as humans can do. But we have to make a decision as leaders and as a society as a whole. Do we want AI to serve us or to replace us? To serve people or to replace them. Here's another story that I came across recently. This was in the ABC. This was just a week ago. A story about the ACM, is the Australian Community Media. It's a smaller media organisation, especially in regional Australia. The story from the ABC said that these staff members are concerned about the way that AI is being used. And it went on to say, this paragraph here I highlighted, it said, from one of the managers, a journalist caught it and did the fact checking, but had they not, it obviously would have been a disaster. And I was thinking, but isn't that a journo's job? Right? Isn't that your job as a journo? Whatever you get, whether it's from a human that you interview, whether it's some article that you read on the internet, or whether it's AI, your job is to do the fact checking. And to make sure that it's not a disaster and people don't get wrongly accused, as happened in this case. So again, the problem in this case is not that the AI got it wrong, it's that the journo and the journo's boss didn't realize that the AI could have got it wrong. Because why is this newsworthy? We should know that AI is going to hallucinate, is the term they use, is going to make up stuff because it's getting data from what people have written. And some of the data is going to be wrong. And some of the ways it puts it together are wrong. So I think that we should always be educating our people. And a big part of our role is education. It's not just the protection part, it's the education part. So I'm going to share something here, and I need to give you a disclaimer that I'm not a financial advisor, never been one. never played one on TV. So what I'm going to give you is financial advice that I got, but it's advice that has been really valuable to me in my life. And I think I'll start off with some advice that I think most of us have got something like this. Low risk, low return. High risk, high return. Okay, so most of us have heard something like this in our lives. I'm really grateful to Dr. Paul Council, who used to run wealth education courses, who said to me, mate, this is not the way to think about risk and return. Because I signed up to one of Paul's courses, you go to lectures, you have these one-on-one coaching sessions. I was sitting with him in a cafe in Perth, and he said this. He said, so his philosophy, which is not as sexy, he said it's about knowledge. High knowledge, higher potential return, and high knowledge, lower potential risk. So increase your knowledge so that you can increase your potential return and lower your potential risk. And I think this applies to AI and professional development, pretty much anything, just as much as it does to financial investments. Okay, let me, I won't stop, I'll just check if there's questions, but I haven't seen any coming yet, so I'm going to continue with the next bit, and then I'll wrap up. Because the third area, the last area, is about taking action. And I think that there's a balance that we all need to strike as leaders. So at one extreme, it's saying, let's lock everything down, make sure that we're 100% protected before we release AI, unleash AI on our employees, our team, and then on our customers. The other extreme, as I said earlier, is just to go, let's get results as quickly as possible. Now, there's a balance between them. And what I've said here is not 100% true. It's not hard and fast. I'm not saying don't protect. We should protect, but don't focus on getting it 100% right before you can take action. So there's bias towards moving towards getting results. And things that I've said already, like doing projects, is that middle ground where you don't have to get everything right before you can start doing things with AI. I asked people beforehand to send me your questions, your leadership questions about AI. Here's one. I'll keep her name anonymous. I'll just call her Kay. That's the first letter of her name. And she said this. She said, my global team's experimenting, but without this shared integration and training and governance, it's very difficult to really adopt AI, and people are doing it at different levels. So I have some advice for Kay and for everybody else in the room, and I'm going to do it actually with a little bit of a slightly, what looks like a tangent at first, but I promise you it does have a point. So as a futurist, I look at not just AI, but a whole bunch of other things. And I came across this article, which was a few weeks ago, about Australia and our renewables. And it said, the coal generation's fading. And the article said this, 90% of Australia's coal generation will be gone in 10 years. 10 years from now, and then we get the rest of it within a decade. Okay, so let's interpret that. Let's be really bold and interpret that as saying in 10 years time we'll be 90% renewables. I know that's not what it says, but let's pretend that's the case. Like, let's be optimistic and say in 10 years time we're 90% renewables. So I thought that's really interesting. That's pretty good, right? In 10 years to go from where we are now to that point, that's pretty good. So I thought, let me do some research and see how we compare with the rest of the world. And so I did some research using ChatGPT and then verifying the results. There are 7 countries in the world that are already more than 90% powered by renewables. Let's do this as a quick question here. I would like you to have a guess what any of those 7 countries is. Can you just type it in the chat, please? Sweden? No, none of the Nordic countries fall within the top 7. Any others? Obviously, you can use Google and ChatGPT to do this. China? No, China's not one of the top 20. India's not one of the top 20. Iceland is one of the top 20, but not top 7. Singapore and the US, Australia, New Zealand, no, none of them are in the top 20. Costa Rica, Netherlands, Dubai, Germany. None of these are in the top 20, except for, as I said, Iceland. Doha, which is UAE, is not. No. Doha's Qatar, is not. No. Philippines is not. China is not. Okay. Let me not keep you in suspenders any longer. So, number 7 is Ethiopia. Number 6, Central African Republic. Number 5 is Uganda, Gabon, and these other countries. Okay, so we as sometimes as patronizing Westerners, these are the countries that we call developing countries, third world countries. If you're the president of the United States, you call them shithole countries, excuse the French. But these are the countries which are currently leading the way in renewable energy use. And somebody said Iceland. Iceland's further down the list. Number 13 is a first, what we call Western developed first world country that appears on the list. And none of the other top 20 are in that category, in the Western countries. So I'm sharing this not just to share an interesting fact, but I'm really interested to know why you think that might be the case. Can I just ask you to type in the chat why you think that might be the case, that these African countries are the highest in renewable energy use? And then I'll make the link to AI. Any guesses? Any guesses at all about why that might be the case? So I've asked a couple of people recently around this. So Victoria says consumerism. So I will say, by the way, that we don't know yet the correct answer to this. So all these guesses are fine. Could be weather, necessity, access to resources, lots of sun. Australia is one of the sunniest countries in the world. We're not even close. By the way, we are about 35% at the moment, 33 to 35%. Yeah, so Peter and Gareth said something which I think is the real reason. And Julian said a similar thing, less infrastructure, critical infrastructure expense. So a really big part of this, and it's really important, is that it's not that we don't want to do it. Well, some people definitely in Australia don't want to do it, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is that we've got so much that we've got these built assets. We've got so many sunk costs that it's difficult to say, let's just make it happen. Let's just click our fingers and make it happen. So this is my advice to Kay as well, and to others as well. When you're talking about this thing where you've got people experimenting and Kay's trying to get this unified approach, a shared approach, what's she calling it? Yeah, shared integration, training and governance. And I think that's not it's okay to have that as a goal, but don't let that stop you from doing it. And that last line, adoption is uneven. Oh, that's okay. Somebody asked me a question earlier. What if we don't get everybody on board? That's okay. That's exactly right. And in fact, as a leader, can I suggest that like small businesses sometimes have an advantage, because small businesses, and I'm one of them, are more fragile, but that means that they can also be more agile. And that's a good thing. There are others, larger businesses, larger organizations who go, let's be steady, let's try and stay steady while we're on this journey, but often it means that you're just not ready for it. So I think what you want is a mix between the two, a blend between the two. Okay, so as a broad principle, people first, technology second, and be willing to be a bit more fragile than you have been in the past, because otherwise, it's very difficult to come on this journey if you say we've got to get everything perfect first, we've got to stay steady on the course, and then bring in AI bits and pieces. This is not advice, but I reckon you've got to be willing to take a few more risks. Okay, so we've got a couple more minutes left. We talked about these three areas, about customers, operation, and your team. I hope you've got some ideas that you can take away, especially about where AI is moving to in the future. I want to finish with a little bit of a story. It's a story about me from 20 years ago, because, everything's about me. Does anyone recognize this? Some people will. It's in Australia. It's not Bondi, but it is on the east coast of Australia. It's not on the west coast, Cottesloe. It's actually Coolangatta Beach. So I lived in Coolangatta about 20 years ago. I moved there for a year, but possibly it's going to be longer because I had lots of clients in Sydney, but I thought I'm too much of a Perth boy to live in Sydney, the big smoke. So I moved to the Gold Coast, Coolangatta, because that's where the airport was, easy to get to anywhere else on the east coast. And I remember I decided I'm going to try some new things, and I decided to learn how to surf. So I ended up having only 2 lessons because I played squash and did something to my shoulder, so I couldn't do it after that. But I remember the very first lesson I went down, there's a whole bunch of other newbies like me, and the trainer was with us on the beach, and he was just starting. And I said, when you're looking out into the water, how do you know whether there's a good wave coming or not that you can catch? Because I thought that's the only way I knew to talk about it. And he said, look, fair question, But it's the wrong question to ask. Because if you're standing on the beach, looking out, waiting for the waves, you'll be too late. Right? If you're going to be a surfer, you need to be out in the water paddling, and only then will you be able to catch a wave that's coming. It's too late. If you see a good wave and you're on the beach, it's too late. I reckon there's a lot of people standing on the beach waiting to see when the wave of AI is coming and when we should jump on board. It's too late. If you're standing on the sidelines, it's way too late. So this is my last message for you. Don't wait for things to be perfect. Don't wait for all your ducks to line up in a row. Don't wait until it's less busy. Don't wait until you've got your AI protocols in place. Start before you're ready, because AI, the world, and your customers won't wait for you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for taking part. And I hope you make the most of your AI journey, and now and in the future. Have a great day. I'll see you in the future. Bye for now.